What if the most powerful space agency on Earth, the one with a $25 billion annual budget, was hiding things right under your nose? Not in science fiction, not in a movie. In real declassified documents, budget black holes, and testimonies from astronauts themselves. Buckle up, folks, we're going in. NASA, the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, founded in 1958, beloved by schoolchildren, trusted by governments, tattooed on coffee mugs across America. On paper, it's a beacon of human achievement: moonwalks, Mars rovers, Hubble photographs that make grown adults cry. Beautiful stuff, truly. But here's the thing nobody talks about at the gift shop. NASA operates in the same town as the Pentagon, answers to the same White House that classifies documents for decades, and has a budget the size of a small country's GDP, with chunks of it that nobody can fully account for. So today we're cracking the file open. The mainstream story, the critics, and yes, the theories that will make your brain do a little cartwheel. Let's go. All right, let's start with the facts, because facts are the foundation, and anyone who skips them is selling you something. NASA was established by the National Aeronautics and Space Act, signed into law by President Eisenhower on July 29, 1958. It grew out of the Cold War panic. The Soviets launched Sputnik in 1957, and America lost its mind. Rightfully so. So they built NASA to win the space race. And when they did, Apollo 11, July 1969, Neil Armstrong on the moon, undisputed, documented, photographed, and backed by hundreds of thousands of engineers and scientists across the globe. Fast forward to today. NASA 2025 budget was $24.9 billion. Major programs include the Artemis missions to return humans to the moon, the James Webb Space Telescope, Mars exploration, and the International Space Station. The agency publishes thousands of research papers annually. Its data is largely open source. Scientists around the world, including rivals in China, Russia, and Europe, independently verify its findings. NASA also acknowledges it doesn't have all the answers. In 2021 and 2023, the agency stood up an official UAP, Unidentified Anomalous Phenomena, independent study team, and published the report. They voluntarily said, "We don't know what some of this stuff is." That's not the behavior of an agency desperately hiding everything. That's an agency doing science. Official position. Transparent, underfunded relative to ambition, and doing its best on a budget that's less than 0.5% of the federal spend. Now here's where it gets interesting, because even people who fully believe in NASA, scientists, former employees, independent researchers, have raised some eyebrows. Criticism 1: the budget black hole. The White House's 2026 budget proposal called for slashing NASA by nearly 25%, from $24.9 billion down to $18.8 billion. Programs like the Lunar Gateway, Mars sample return, and major science missions face cancellation. Critics, including members of Congress and international partners, say this represents a fundamental betrayal of science priorities. The question being asked by legitimate policy analysts: where did that previous money go? And why are we cutting science while certain defense-adjacent programs expand quietly? Criticism 2: the classification problem. NASA technically classifies far less than the Department of Defense, but it shares contractors, technology pipelines, and personnel with classified military space programs like the National Reconnaissance Office and the U.S. Space Force. Critics argue the boundary between civilian space agency and military space operation is blurrier than NASA press releases suggest. Former NASA Administrator Sean O'Keefe himself acknowledged tensions between open science mandates and national security demands. Criticism 3: UAP stonewalling. NASA-owned UAP study team, released in 2023, concluded that more data was needed and called for better sensor integration. Reputable scientists like Dr. Avi Loeb of Harvard have argued publicly that the mainstream scientific community, including NASA, applies a giggle factor to serious UAP research that slows legitimate inquiry. Loeb's Galileo project operates outside NASA for a reason. The criticism isn't that NASA is lying, it's that institutional inertia and reputational fear cause under-investigation of genuinely anomalous data. All right. I've got someone here, a researcher, he says, who has been up since 3 a.m. with a corkboard and some string. Let's hear it.
I appreciate the introduction. Let me be clear, I don't deal in fantasy, I deal in patterns, and the patterns around NASA are significant.
Oh, fantastic. Patterns, love patterns. What's pattern number 1, my guy?
The Moon Landing Archives. NASA admitted in 2006 that the original Apollo 11 telemetry tapes, the highest quality recordings of the actual moonwalk, were lost. Gone. They recorded over them, the most important footage in human history. Recorded. Over.
They what? Get a load of this. You're telling me humanity's greatest achievement and someone said, hey, we need this tape for something else.
Gets better. The agency that put men on the moon, with technology less powerful than a modern smartphone, somehow couldn't maintain archival standards that your local news station managed in 1972.
Okay, but that's just catastrophic incompetence, not necessarily a cover-up.
Maybe, or maybe, the tapes showed things in the background that weren't supposed to be there. Declassified Apollo-era documents have quietly referenced anomalous lights and objects observed by astronauts during missions. Ask yourself, who benefits from those tapes disappearing?
Oh, we're doing who benefits. Classic, okay, what else?
Operation Paperclip. NASA founding fathers weren't American heroes. They were literally German rocket scientists, including Wernher von Braun, recruited from the Nazi program after World War II. The US government classified their backgrounds, gave them new identities, and handed them the keys to the American space program.
Okay, that one is not a conspiracy theory, that one is just documented history that actually happened.
Exactly my point. The things that sound like conspiracy theories sometimes are the documented history. So when I tell you the next one, keep that in mind.
Oh no, what's the next one?
Face on Mars. NASA-owned Viking 1 orbiter photographed a formation on Mars in 1976 that resembled a humanoid face. NASA initially dismissed it as a trick of light and shadow. When higher-resolution images came back decades later, the face resolved into a mesa. But independent researchers point out that the surrounding region, Cydonia, contains geometric formations that show statistically unusual angular relationships. Not one anomaly, a cluster.
You cannot be serious. You're doing math on Mars rocks.
Someone at NASA did math on Mars rocks first. That's the point. The question is why the data gets buried under press conference jokes instead of peer-reviewed investigation.
Okay. You said something earlier about astronaut testimonies, because I've heard things.
Edgar Mitchell, Apollo 14 astronaut, the sixth human being to walk on the moon. In multiple interviews he stated, on record, that he believed extraterrestrial visitors had been to Earth and that government agencies had covered up contact. This is not a fringe figure. This is a man NASA trusted to land on the moon.
An actual moonwalker said that, out loud, with his mouth.
NASA response was essentially, he's expressing personal beliefs. The same NASA that trusted his personal judgment to operate a lunar module at 250,000 miles from Earth.
Oh, it gets better. I can just tell it gets better.
UAP study team. NASA stood up an official UAP investigation, which sounds transparent. But look at the timing. Congressional pressure. Whistleblower testimonies under oath. The National Defense Authorization Act mandating UAP disclosure. NASA didn't do this voluntarily out of scientific curiosity. They did it because the pressure became too great to ignore. And even then, their 2023 report concluded they needed better data. After 70 years of space operations and a multi-billion-dollar sensor infrastructure.
So your read is, they're stalling.
I'm saying the documents show a pattern of reactive disclosure rather than proactive transparency. Follow the timeline. Every major NASA transparency moment follows a congressional mandate or a lawsuit. That's not an open agency. That's a managed release schedule.
I'm not saying I believe you, but I am saying I need a glass of water. So where does everybody actually agree? Here's the honest scoreboard. Agreement. NASA budget and program decisions lack meaningful public oversight, and cancellations of major science programs happen with minimal explanation. Mainstream critics, scientists, and yes, even the conspiracy crowd all agree the money story doesn't fully add up. Agreement. The UAP question is real and under-investigated. NASA said so itself in 2023. Harvard scientists say so. Former intelligence officials have testified to Congress under oath. The disagreement is how real and why, not whether it warrants investigation. Divergence. The moon landing happened. Every serious independent verification. Retroreflectors left on the lunar surface that scientists around the world still bounce lasers off today. Independent tracking data from non-American nations including the Soviet Union, who had every reason to expose a fake, and 400 kilograms of moon rock studied by labs globally, confirms it. The lost tapes are embarrassing institutional negligence, not evidence of fabrication. Divergence. The face on Mars is a natural geological formation per high-resolution imaging. The anomalies cited by fringe researchers don't hold up to rigorous statistical methodology according to the broader scientific community. Where IT gets murky, the overlap between NASA and classified military space programs is real, documented, and worth scrutiny. The recruitment of former Nazi scientists to build the agency is documented history, not conspiracy theory. And the gap between what astronauts privately believed and what NASA officially acknowledges is a legitimate, unresolved tension. Here's the honest truth, folks, and I'm going to give it to you straight because you deserve it. NASA is not a perfectly transparent agency. No government agency is. It operates within a national security apparatus that classifies information, shares contractors with the Pentagon, and has made catastrophically bad archival decisions, like erasing the original Apollo footage. Those are real failures and they deserve real scrutiny. The grand cover-up narrative that NASA is actively hiding alien contact, that the moon landing was staged, that they're suppressing a secret parallel space program, lacks the kind of verified, sourced, independently confirmed evidence that would be required to take it seriously. The moon landing is one of the most verified events in human history. Mars features are geological, and NASA UAP acknowledgments, while frustratingly slow, suggest an agency doing science imperfectly rather than one engaged in coordinated deception. However, the legitimate criticisms, opaque budgets, classified military crossover, under investigation of anomalous phenomena, and a culture of institutional defensiveness, those are worth your attention and your demanded accountability. The truth, as always, is less cinematic than the conspiracy and less pristine than the press release. NASA is a powerful, imperfect, sometimes infuriating human institution. The question isn't whether to trust it blindly. The question is whether you're paying enough attention to hold it accountable. And the answer, based on everything we found today, is probably not enough. That's the NASA file, officially closed, unofficially wide open. Drop your theory in the comments. Hit subscribe if you want the next classified briefing, and remember, the truth doesn't care if you believe it.